members constituents of Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Needle Lakes District. And during 2017, Mr. Clark made time for meetings with several members of our network. In recent months, we have shared other discussions as I continue to keep Minister Clark updated as to how the network's proceeding, and his staff is always open for meetings and times for sharing. So Minister Clark supported a motion at Queen's Park on December 17th, 2017. The Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder Day will be recognized province-wide on September 9th of every year. Mr. Clark met with several parents offering advice on our efforts on advocacy with the legislation, and served as a voice for FASD at Queen's Park in 2018. He shows respect for our cause, and as part of that, he sends today some of his best people. His executive assistant, Mr. Michael Jiggins, is here to join us today and be part of our anniversary celebration. We are excited about that, and we thank you very much, Michael, for joining us this morning.
Well, thanks very much, Diane. And I always say, with Mr. Clark not being here, you don't get the 25-minute speech. So everybody's always relieved to hear that. But I just wanted to come here on behalf of Mr. Clark, who sends his regrets that he couldn't be here, just to congratulate you on everything that you've accomplished in the past year. I know that there has been some government support, so we're pleased to see that. But I'm hearing this morning that there's more work to do, and that's the other message that I wanted to send, whether it's through Diane, through Rob, through individual members of the group. However you want to approach our office, I'm sure Mr. Hillier's office would give you the same message, that we're here to listen, and we're here to be your voice at Queen's Park. Regardless of what side of the house that we sit on, I think this is an issue where you've got children and families and adults, young adults, that need some help, and politics gets put aside. Let's all work together and see how we can do it. We've made some great accomplishments. I know I was reading over some of the emails last night that Diane and I had been exchanging, and it's just amazing how this group has grown from just a few people sitting around a kitchen table sort of saying, you know, there's a lot of us that are trying to find our way through the system. Some of us have figured some things out. Some of us are still trying to figure it out. What if we got together, pooled our resources, and helped each other and helped others? And I think that is so important, particularly in a rural area where it's difficult to drive to Kingston, to drive to Ottawa, to drive to Brockville, to access those services, or just to access somebody who can tell me what the heck is going on, where do I turn to next? And so having this resource, connecting over Facebook, connecting over email, calling each other, is such a fantastic thing, just to know that you're not alone. Regardless of what you're going through as a family, it's incredible just to know that you're not alone, that there's people that have walked the same path as I am walking, and you can get some advice. So more than anything else, that's the real success over the past year, with experts to help the families that we've heard from this morning, with each other to rely on, and you know, we've got some work to do. I'm more than happy to meet with, as I said, with the group, with you individually, to see how we can do a better job advocating. If there's any questions that folks have, I'm happy to try to answer those. I've got some cards if you want to connect with me afterwards. Our email address is info@steveclarkmpp.com, so if you want to send me any messages offline, we're here to help. That's my message today. Congratulations, and I know there's more work to do, and Mr. Clark is happy to help where we can. So are there any questions that folks have? I've heard a couple of things to take away today around the diagnosis piece and around occupational therapy. On the occupational therapy side, is that where does the problem with access come? Is that just not
So I
enough
think-
specialists in the field?
So I think the challenge of practice there is right now the only publicly funded occupational therapist that we have access to is basically through the LHINs.
Right,
And the LHINs, because of where their policies and procedures, it's almost a catch-22 now, where they're saying you have to come in with a doctor's recommendation for occupational therapy
right.
in order to be able to access their services. And so you can't get the FASD diagnosis without having the occupational therapy assessment, so that's where that catch-22 is really coming into play.
And they're not doing assessment, they're doing support, right? They're
Yeah,
doing the service, they're doing the treatment, they're not doing the assessment either.
yeah, so that's the other part of it is and an occupational therapist is really, they're really the one person that's qualified to do that sensory processing assessment. So it's, you can get it sort of from other places, but they're really the ones, and they're not, like you said, their focus is more on that treatment piece than it is on that diagnostic piece.
And very few of them understand FASD.
Yeah,
We're very fortunate, our family, in that Open Doors hired an amazing psychotherapist who also has an OT background. And she's doing amazing things with our son.
Right, okay.
That's the model we would love for everybody.
sorry.
It's like many of the other services that we deal with. You can access it if you have the funding to access it. So there are private practices in Ottawa that are trauma-informed and FASD informed, and will do a sensory processing assessment. It costs you about $500. Most of us, there's no public funding that covers that.
No.
And even for most of us that have a benefits plan that might cover, you know, social work or counseling or any of those other things, OT is almost always excluded from those private benefit
Yeah.
plans.
It is,
So
yeah.
there is next to no support. If families want to access that, it is almost always funded cash out of your pocket.
Yeah.
And an OT session privately will run you about $100 to $150 with a qualified OT who understands FASD. And to even bring them into like a school setting or anything else, it just multiples. It just, you know, we have, it's similar to Shelley. We are fortunate that we can access it privately, and we do, because I genuinely believe this is the best thing that is gonna help my kid long term. We brought her into our school last week. They invited her, but we funded it. And so by the time you pay for all of that, it was $500 to bring her into our school and educate our classroom. Because Communicare, who does the in-school OT, is specifically prevented from doing sensory interventions. They only will work as a mandate on gross and fine motor skills.
Yeah.
So even though every assessment my kid has says, yes, those are an issue, but sensory is the underlying issue that is inhibiting him in the classroom, they're not allowed to work with him on that. It's just, it is broken
It's just
everywhere
layer
you
of
turn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do the same thing with my guy.
Yeah, we're not unique in this. Every one of us would tell a different variant of that story, but it is broken on every level unless you can just pay for it to do the thing you need to do. And that is so not an option for most families.
For most families, yeah.
Yeah.
My insurance benefits would be $400 for everything.
Yeah.
So 1 hour at a therapist was $185 an hour.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a few problems. One is getting service providers to understand FASD, because there's a huge education piece there. And we are very fortunate in that we know the ones in our area that understand it, and so we do as much referral to them as possible, because at least our, you know. But that's part of what this group is doing, is trying to educate service providers. The other one, and I don't know if you would remember this, but Minister Clark supported an amendment to the Education Act. It went through first reading.
Went through first reading, and then it
Twice?
died with the
On the
prorogation.
Yeah.
And then it died because when, so for us, that's another big piece. It doesn't have to, in our minds, it doesn't have to be an amendment to the Education Act. That's what Sophie Koala's group, like whatever
The
the
direction that
process was,
she had
that was the
received
direction.
was that it needed to be done as an amendment to the Education Act.
Yeah,
And
which makes it so difficult, right? We
Right,
have to go
but
through that
we-
legislative
Yeah,
process.
but my understanding is the autism, everything that happened with autism went through a PPM. Is
at
that
the
right?
beginning,
PPM? At
so
the
through the
beginning.
Ministry of Education, the minister can just do a PPM. And that's how autism got started in the first place, was the minister did a PPM for them, rather than the
Rather than
amendment to the
have to go
Education Act
legislative-
came later,
legislative.
after the support was there
Yeah,
across the board.
so that's the other really big piece,
So-
is to get, because the other struggle we have is not all schools or school boards recognize FASD as a physical disability and something
So
that
it really
needs
needs to come
support.
from.
It needs to
Yeah.
come from the ministry down, and so it needs to be mandated, they need to accept FASD as a physical disability, and they need to have appropriate strategies put in place at each school, so that when our parents are dealing with a principal who says FASD isn't a,
It's not a box on my form.
it's not a box on my form, yeah,
So therefore, it's,
we can go, no.
so are
Here's the box.
those discussions, have you approached the ministry?
So
When was
we
the
have,
most recent?
we have a member who's actually watching right now,
Yeah.
from Owen Sound,
Owen Sound,
who
okay.
has attempted to meet with Minister Thompson.
She did have a meeting with Minister
She
Thompson
did.
once.
She did have, at the very, very beginning, there was a meeting with Minister Thompson. It hasn't gone anywhere since then.
Yeah, and let us be very clear, we recognize you guys have had a lot on your plate.
Sure.
But we just don't wanna get lost in the chaos. We've felt, and I'm speaking we as in Robert and I think Diane would probably agree, we felt that Minister Clark has been very clear and very supportive of us. But we want it moved forward, because the longer it takes to get the education and diagnostic piece taken care of, the longer it's gonna take for our kids and families we don't know yet to get the support they need. And so it's, yeah, so I think that's, we wanna work collaboratively with the province. But it is something that we really wanna highlight, and we've been very fortunate that MPP Roberts and MPP Fullerton are meeting with us also next week.
Monday.
So we're
Monday.
not just relying
Yeah.
on, we're not putting it all on Minister Clark.
And that's,
We're-
that's what I was gonna say, that's what you need, that's
Yeah.
what you need to do, right? Is-
Yeah.
is
And
have,
And in fact, with Minister Roberts, the entire purpose of it is there's a delegation from the Catholic District School Board of Eastern Ontario is coming in and showing MPP Roberts their model of how they're supporting students with FASD here. And it's based on, there's a couple other models out there as well. The one up in Kawartha Patricia, the one in Waterloo District as well, have got published models of how they're supporting students with FASD.
Okay.
So, and then the last piece is CanFAS, our national organization for FASD. The online course for educators it will be going live later this week. So, and it's basically set up the same way as the Geneva Institute for Autism, that online course that they do for educators. There's one in place for FASD now as well.
okay.
Okay?
Yeah,
Well, I'd be happy to sit down after,
Yeah.
find out how the discussion goes on Monday and
Yeah,
and
perfect.
try to push that forward, absolutely.
and I think the other piece for me is just to express gratitude that you've honored the commitment for the FASD key workers, and for Health Nexus doing the caregiver support group money
Yes.
and the website. So those have been very beneficial to our organization, so.
And those funding agreements, what do they look like on the timeline right now, in terms of when would the next sort of
So
renewal?
they're an annual.
Okay,
So we just got funded again until
Yeah.
March 2020.
So that's
Yeah.
through MCCSS.
Yes,
Is where that funding is, and yes, they gave the approval just a couple months ago for this upcoming year.
Yeah.
But there's
Well,
nothing,
And
yeah.
what's interesting is that we got less funding this year, and that's
For
sad,
a
but at the
longer
same
time window.
time,
Yeah, for
but
a
at the
longer
same-
time window too.
Yeah.
We have to note that.
but at the same time, we're glad in some ways. The reason we didn't get as much funding is because there's more groups being started, and so
Yeah.
they had to spread
Right,
the
so-
amount over a larger group.
okay.
So, but yeah, so that's kind of where things are at there, and we just want to send that message that funding is very important to caregiver
Yes.
groups, and,
And I would
Yeah,
add
this
as
doesn't
well
happen without it.
in our example, our son's adult.
yeah.
And, you know, that it's even more difficult to find funding for, you know, adult supports.
Yeah.
But having said that, I see changes happening in developmental services and the supports specific to FASD as we advocate as a family. The agency's coming around and being a good support that way, but it's just a matter of, you know, voicing our opinions and staying diligent about.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in particular, in our region, in Leeds and Grenville, I can't say enough good things about the offices there and the support they provide
Good.
for in our example anyway.
That's good feedback.
Mhm.
Great. And I
So-
know that advocacy, it's difficult, just listening in the short time I've been here about what families are going through. I know adding the advocacy piece on top of that is tough, but it is important. It is important to make sure that your voice is heard, and certainly that commitment from our office is there to amplify it.
And it helps the province, when the money comes, to know what we need.
Exactly.
What we
Yeah.
exactly need.
Yeah.
I think the other piece I just wanna highlight is the benefit of the money around the childcare. Because right now, you haven't seen very many people leave this room in the hour or so that we've been sitting here.
Right.
That is not typical, right? With our kids and the needs that they have. You're seeing a group of parents sitting here almost relaxed. That's not our reality,
That's not-
right? That's not our reality when our kids are at school, because we're getting calls about their behavior because the programming doesn't meet their needs and they're getting triggered. That's not our reality when they're in soccer or football or hockey or guides or swimming or basketball.
Or parenting.
Or,
My son's
yeah. So the gift of funded childcare by people who get our kids
Yes.
and program appropriately for them, this is unheard of. So I think that really needs to be noted too, that the money is providing the kids with a place to feel like they belong and they are actually getting their needs met and feeling successful. And the parents are getting a place to be able to sit here. Now, you've watched all of us, our ears are to the door, right? Like, we're all kind
Yeah, we're
of,
tuned
you
in.
know,
That's
every
right.
once in a while, is that my kid, right? Is that
Your ability to multitask is
Yeah.
not lost on me.
Exactly,
Amazing.
exactly. And are they handling that or okay? Do I need to go, right? But that's what well-funded, well, not well-funded, funded service. With qualified, knowledgeable people who get kids with FASDs,
Yeah.
that's the difference it makes. And I think that that's money well spent, and it's not a lot of money, so.
And if I can tap off of that, it's also important to realize it's not childcare.
Yeah.
We have centers set up down there, they are learning how to do robotics,
Yeah.
they're learning how to do computer programming, they're learning life skills, they're learning social interaction, which they don't normally get.
Yeah.
And so this is very much, it's a training workshop going on down there,
Yeah.
not just hanging out.
Exactly, yeah.
It's like belonging to a club,
Yep.
you know,
Yeah.
that kind of interaction, the social aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, where they belong, right, where they.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Somewhere
we,
we feel
Yeah.
comfortable letting them go to,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's, like we said, someone is.
and we ensure that the individual that is the lead is either an EA or a DSW.
Okay.
With training
With
in
specific
FASD.
training, yeah.
Yeah, so, and then we have a volunteer who helps, who's actually decided to go into one of those two. I don't know if he's made a decision as to which one, but he's
Okay.
actually decided on a career path as a result of spending time in this group.
Wonderful.
So, and that's all from that caregiver support, because that piece of money that we paid to operate downstairs comes from the caregiver support money,
Okay,
so,
that's great feedback. Thank you very much.
yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Do the certificate. You want to read the certificate then as well? Did I get you?
I need glasses.
Okay.
Some of the times. So this is a certificate that's been awarded to us. I'm very pleased to congratulate the members of the Rural FASD Support Network on the network's first anniversary. This is a welcome opportunity to recognize the care and compassion that are at the heart of your group's important work. I'm crying. and the vital role you play in providing support to individuals living with fetal alcohol spectrum disorders. Our province's rural communities are made better places by people like you. As you reflect on the positive impact you've had over the past year, I offer you my best wishes for a memorable anniversary celebration and for the network's continued success. This came from Doug Ford, our Premier. Well, thank you very much, Michael, and I think we may have some more sharing time at